Did you know that wood shims aren't just for contractors? They are for crafters too. And I'm so excited for you to see the DIY projects I have planned for today's video. This is actually part 2 of making beautiful things with these very budget-friendly wood shims. If you haven't caught part 1, I suggest you go down in the description of this video and find the link because I think you'll really enjoy it. And when you're finished watching this video, could you let me know down in the comments if you would love a part 3? Because I have a couple more ideas that I think you might like. All right, well, let's get started with project idea number 1. The first project that I want to show you is going to be a shim snowman. I'll be working with 8-inch shims. You can actually use any length of shims for these because we're going to end up cutting them up. I'll show you that in a minute. And then a surface of your choice. This is a Dollar Tree piece of wood from the craft section. It measures 5.5 by 7.5, and it will stand on its own, but probably more like a leaner shelf sitter type of feel. And then the little pieces that we'll end up with will all look like this. To cut those, I have a new crafty gadget that I've never premiered on a video before, and these are called miter shears. Shout out to my friend Lori over at Farmhouse Stencil Shop, because she used these and I was like, no way, how did I not know these existed all my life? Because I have a ton of crafty gadgets and tools. Sometimes it's so funny, as much as you do, there's always something new to discover. Okay, so we got the fact that we're gonna need some shims. I just happen to be using these short ones today. Share the measurements here and then show you how these miter shears work. So the biggest piece is gonna go at the bottom. I have to say, I was so inspired by my friend Monique over at Grace and Tattered Lace. I will also link her in the description of the video so you can go check out her page. But she did a bigger version of this that she cuts on her laser machine. And so I loved the concept and I said, I want a little one. But these little miter shears here, let's open up. There's a little locking mechanism because these things can take off a finger. They are so sharp. You will need a 4.5-inch piece, a 3.5-inch piece, a 2.5-inch piece, a 2-inch piece, and then this hat, 1.5 inches, but then I turned it like this. And then this one is actually half of a shim. I'll show you how I did that. And it measures 4 inches long. And that's just gonna be like the little brim of the hat up there. Okay, so let's line that up here with our template piece. I'm gonna get ready to cut, and I'm just gonna remove this. It just needs to lay flat against here. Gotta get it. It's just like a giant pair of really strong scissors. Okay, for the hat piece though, I'm gonna show you how I kind of just started to cut it down the middle here and kind of split it, and I gave it a fun little shape because these will split. So let's cut it to length first. Okay. All right. And then I said I only want half of it. So I started to cut it down the center, and it really just kind of naturally split. And if it doesn't for you, you could start to cut it like that and then just maybe like break it, give it some character. Like that. So see how that looks? I just think that was the little extra character that that little hat brim needed. So now we're just gonna work on these pieces that we do already have cut. I just wanted to demonstrate how easy that was. Go ahead and lock these things back in place, but how fun are those? Really, really handy. Next step is going to be a fun technique that I have done several times. Is using your favorite color paint and some joint compound for texture. This is embossed paper that it's a scrapbook piece of paper. They sell it in single sheets at Hobby Lobby. There are a few different designs that they do sell. I love this pattern. I've used it on a lot of different crafts. Got some of this joint compound with the brush. Next is the color Briar Patch by Dixie Belle. It's a chalk paint color. You do not need any kind of special paint to do this technique. I just really liked this green color. A little bit of the green out of there and put on the other side, and then I can pull a little bit of the green and a little bit of the joint compound together to mix it. Let's do a little mixing. Now this will affect the color slightly because the joint compound is white, but that's going to be a really pretty wintry snowman background, I think. I did a pretty good job of picking out exactly how much paint and joint compound I needed. Okay, we're gonna use this basically as a stamp, and we're gonna apply the paste to the background. We'll worry about the edges here in just a minute. A nice healthy coat, because remember it's got the texture compound in it, and we want it to take the shape of this little piece of paper. All right, so I'm gonna start, I think I'm gonna start at the top up here, and then I'm gonna piece together the design like that. Rub. Making sure that the embossing is happening. Give it a little bit of pressure. You don't want it sliding around. I'm getting paint all over me. That's how you know it's good. And then we can just pull back to reveal that pretty design. Isn't that amazing? Now what we can do is we can line up the pattern the best that we can, like that, to finish out the rest of the design. If you have not tried this technique yet, I promise you will be so amazed by it. Adds such character. Look how gorgeous that is. Now we're gonna let this dry a little bit here in a minute, but let's decide if we wanna do just paint and texture along the edges. I think just some paint will be just fine. All the edges are painted. Now, painting the back is normally something I do. I'm actually gonna leave it unfinished for this project. Now we're gonna set this to the side. If you wanna reuse your embossing paper, you need to go ahead and give it a little wipe. It is made from paper, but it's made with a little bit of a stronger paper, so it can take a little cleanup. It's really pretty painted too, by the way. I've used it on many projects and just painted the actual paper. But I also love using it as a stamp. Well, that's gorgeous right there. Look at that. Just wiping back that green. That's so pretty. Look at that. Okay, but then you could use it to stamp again because you've removed all the excess product. All right, let's get cleaned up a little bit. Then we will paint the little pieces that are gonna make the snowman body. I'm gonna first use a color called wrought iron on the hat. We're gonna use it for the face as well. It's just a little bit of a softer black. We can let that dry and then we'll move on to the white. Paint this piece. We can save the rest of this paint for when we paint the face on the snowman. All right, get this black cleaned off my hands real quick. I got a little messy with that. Again, that's how you know you're having fun, when you got paint on your hands. Okay, and then we're gonna use the color Vintage White by Folk Art for the snowman body. It's just a little bit of a creamy white. I only need to paint one side of this, and so let me do all these pieces and we'll come back and I'll tell you what's next. You can use a heat tool, put it in front of a fan, or just let it air dry. Now that everything's dry, I want to use a product that is a white wax by Folk Art. A little bit more translucent than paint. I think it's gonna work great. Now this does have a really creamy kind of yellow tone to it. I think it's gonna be really pretty with this green, but we'll see. I can always layer something else over the top of it if I want something different. Just gonna add a little bit of a haze over the embossing and help some of that color, that design pop. I think it gives it kind of a wintry look too, which is what I was going for. This is really, circular motions help the products like glazes and stuff push down into grooves of embossing and raised design along the edges. And I really do like this haziness. That's really, I just wanted kind of a winter haze. Okay, let's get this dry. Now let's go and expose some of this wood along the edges so that when we bring this darker kind of staining wax, it's the darker version of the folk art glaze, the brown version, that we'll be able to pick up some of this exposed wood, and it'll give us some nice definition around the edges. Wax in the color brown. Again, all of these different layers are optional. There are lots of fun variations. I'd love to know down in the comments what are some things you would do for the background of the snowman. I think a pretty decoupage paper or a napkin. Lots of different things you could do. We're going to drag this antique wax around the edges here, picking up on that exposed wood more than anything, because I think that's really what helps frame it out and make it look a little weathered, which I love the style, but you could skip that step. We're going to come back and blend that in. We're just putting on the product where we need it. But are you loving how it's looking so far? Like you can see it, picture it. All right, I have this little baby wipe, and we're just gonna go, and I'm just gonna kind of blend around the edges, kind of pulling that product forward. Get some nice shading. I don't want any harsh brush lines whenever I'm doing this type of technique. There's a time for harsh brush lines. Right now is not it for me and what I'm thinking about for this lovely little snowman. And I can just kind of look at it as it dries, and I can decide if I want to put any more of the wax, like maybe a little bit heavier in the corner. Maybe deepen that corner kind of frame look. I could do that. It really is a trust the process thing and have fun. And paint is just paint. And you can always go back and do something different. Now I'm just using some light pressure around the corners to help blend that in. And I like the character that added. Dry brush in a couple spots. Kind of go in different directions. And then I'll give a little bit of antiquing to the background, which we're going to cover a lot of that up, but that looks so pretty. So that just adds in a little extra character, but without overtaking the color. So now we need to build a snowman. I'm going to use a sander to just do a little bit of the edges of these snowman pieces. When I sand the edges of like the hat, I'm exposing some of that shim color, which kind of is that brightness that I'm looking for anyway. So I think that I'll be happy with that. Tab of our brown antique wax. And I'm going to load up my brush. I'm going to offload it a little bit as well because I don't want too much product on there. And I'm just going to kind of drag around the edges very, oh so subtly. Not even going to worry about blending this brown. Maybe a little bit with my finger. These are done. Let me give you a nice close-up look so you can see what I'm talking about, where it's very, very subtle around the edges. I did not drag any of the antique wax over the main body of the snowman because I didn't want to change the color of the white. There is not usually ever a time where I am just 100% fully confident in exactly how I finish off something, but I will tell you the more that you do it, the more confident you will become because you understand how the products work, the products that you keep on hand most times, and how they layer with one another, how they work and complement one another. And so with that just comes just practice. Okay, so we know we're gonna turn the hat like that. And I'm okay if it actually sticks out a little past the top there. I think that's cute actually. I'm gonna be pretty healthy with my hot glue here. Get my bottom piece started. A little glue where I know it's gonna touch. And then just set it on there. Now let's embellish and paint a little face. Plans for the face. I'm going to keep it extremely simple here. I'm even going to use a piece of scrap cardboard, corrugated. I love using this for the nose. I think it gives a ton of character. So I'm just going to kind of freehand a little nose triangle out of here and see how big I want that to be. That'll help guide me. I love help. That's kind of fun. That's kind of fun, but I think I need to trim off just a little bit so I can fit my eyes in there. And I'm just going to barely round the end and then change the angle to not be so harsh. And there, that is so cute. So now I can just put two little eyes, either with paint. I think I'm going to use the same wrought iron color. And I'm probably just going to use the end of my paintbrush instead of the actual bristles. Just kind of in place. We can always fill it back in. Well, I was going to sketch this, but I decided just go for it. Bristles and just help round out some of the mouth circles. So cute. I love it. I need to make this one just a little bit bigger. It's perfectly imperfect in some ways, which a snowman built outside is perfectly imperfect too. But I love that. And then we'll just glue that little nose in place and we have a snowman that came to life. This is actually repurposed cardboard from an Amazon package. I loved the corrugated look because it matches some scrapbook paper that I normally buy from Hobby Lobby, so it just saves me some money. Let's keep embellishing and see. I've got a couple different yarns that I'm thinking about for the scarf that I had in my stash, and I wanted to get it built to this point first before I decided what color. This one's a little bit more creamy ivory. This one's got more gray in it, and then maybe I could even mix them for like a really pretty custom scarf, which is probably what I'm going to do. I think I have an idea. Let's see if it looks good. I'm gonna tie them in the center to form a little knot in the center. And then I'm gonna take just this piece right here and make it look like that's wrapped around his neck. So we'll need to glue that in place. Let's just drizzle a little bit of glue here so I can tuck that piece of yarn up underneath. I love adding texture to projects. That gives it so much character. Okay, then we'll just be able to put some glue on this knot and tuck that, and it'll look like the scarf is tied. You can leave it long, of course. Now these brown buttons will help bring out the brown around the edge of the board. Buttons are everywhere. I've always decided now, as much as I have crafted with buttons, that I wait until the last minute to decide. I could be putting the last button back in the jar and say, no, this is the one, this is the one. So I'm always changing my mind. I decided this little guy was a little eclectic and that he has mismatched buttons, which I love. So tell me what you think about that. Now I'm just gonna glue those in place. A little dab here. A little tag. This one says Snow Day, which I love. I think I'm gonna cut this one out. These are printables that you can get as a Creative Nest member. And if you're like, oh, what is the Creative Nest? I would love to tell you. Go check the description of this video you're watching. It is a virtual crafting club that I host inside a private Facebook group and an offsite library that has all types of first looks, tutorials. Some are exclusive. And then you get access to a large printable library. So if that sounds like something you would enjoy, you might want to go check that out. All right, I'm going to crinkle it up just a little bit. Instead of pulling out my antique inks that I use sometimes while I'm rubber stamping or doing tag work, I'm actually, because this is printed on white cardstock, I'm actually just going to antique the printable a little bit with this same antique wax that you saw me use on the project. All right, so I'm just wiping off the excess. Now that the tag is done, which I love it so much, look how pretty. It just antiqued it perfectly. I can decide, tuck it under here, under the scarf, or at the bottom. Tell me which you would have chosen. I really think that I'm gonna go with the bottom. I just think that adds a lot of character. And sometimes I love stamping on things like this when there's open wood. And so I think this will be the perfect little touch. It'll be a little different. I'm gonna put a little hot glue back here. Oh yes, this is so perfect. Got a little piece of that off. And it's just gonna be a fun little natural embellishment right there at the top of the hat. That's perfect. All right, now when we make snowmen, I need a name. So if you're watching this part all the way to the end, then tell me what you would name him and we'll move on to the next project. Obsessed is an understatement. This was so much fun to put together, just watching it, all the little steps and kind of trusting the process with all the fun paint techniques and then building all the pieces of the snowman. I really hope that you'll try this one. Okay, are you ready for another project idea? Let's do it. Project number 2 coming your way now. For project number 2, you will need several 15-inch shims, or you can of course adjust the size, but that's what I'm using for this. And we're making a snowflake. It's going to be so pretty. Let me show you how this works. So the main part of the snowflake, I'm actually going to paint it and give it the paint finish after I assemble it. I like to do that. People ask me that very often, and I like to explain that I like for my glues, whether I'm using wood glue, hot glue, industrial glue, I want the wood to wood, bare wood to bare wood contact. And if I go ahead and paint and stain everything, then essentially I'm gluing everything with a layer of paint between it. And while it probably will stay together, in some cases it might not. So just best practices are to build it and then finish it. Okay, and so the 3 main pieces here make up the snowflake shape. So you can see I just kind of made sort of an X with that, but you'll kind of see once you add on that 3rd piece, you want the little gaps right here to be about the same size. Now this is very rustic. Not only are we using the rustic shim pieces of wood, but it's rough and it just, the paint finish will look and go with that style. So anything that you can think is like a major difference, see that wouldn't look like a snowflake because that section is so small and this one's so large. So do your best to line it up like that. And then we're going to have these little feature pieces. You will end up needing 2 for the end of each pieces here. And they are just under 3 inches. So about 2 3/4 inches. You can adjust this too, but this is just what I found that works. So you need 2 pieces for the end of every section of the snowflake. And we're going to stack it and glue it like that. It's going to be very pretty, but I'm going to show you how I cut it, because I need 2 more pieces. We're going to pull out that handy set of miter shears again. And they're already in the unlock mode. So what we'll do is we'll take a piece, another shim. These are actually cedar shims. I don't know if you can kind of tell that. So they're a little different. I haven't found any longer ones that are made with different kind of wood. Let me go ahead and get this really thin piece out of the way. I do suggest maybe try not to use the super, super thin end of a shim. It's more likely to split in things, how we're using it here. So I'm going to try to get some of the thicker portion. My miter shears. This is going to be a straight cut, so I'm going to dump that template off and just give it a nice little cut. So there's one piece. I'm going to do the same thing. So yeah, I love the smell of the cedar. It has a little bit of a different wood tone too. Sometimes these pieces can go flying. Okay, so now we have everything we need to actually build it before we finish it. The first things first, I can go ahead and hold this in place. And don't be too globby. You don't want it all seeping out. But you do want a healthy bit of glue there. Back here. And then turn that over and line it up how I had it laid out a while ago. And really, I just leave a little bit of a gap here before I put these pieces on, maybe about an inch, 1.5 inches down. And go ahead and put that first piece on. and then just layer the other piece like that to make the little V. Very, very simple. It's very, very rustic, and I love it. It's not going to be perfect, and I should have showed you this earlier, but yes, we measured all these little pieces, and I cut them all ahead of time and then showed you. But look, there's still some differences. Even if I line them up, there's still some differences in the lengths of these. They're not perfect, but the charm of this is that they don't have to be. So let's keep gluing all these pieces on the ends, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what we're going to do for a decorative finish. Gluing this last piece on. I have to tell you too that if you do want to use wood glue, or you prefer using some type of industrial glue or craft glue, you'll have to have some clamps nearby in order to hold all those pieces in place while the glue sets. This way, we don't have to wait for anything to set. Now we're going to go ahead and give this a nice rustic paint finish. I am going to stain it very similar to the Shim star that I made. I'm using the color Fudgesicle by AFK. That's a frayed knot chalk paint, and I'll be sure to link that in the description for you. But we're going to make a little paint wash, turning it into a water-based stain. So to do that, you just pour a little bit on the plate, enough to do your project. And we're going to water it down. I'm going to use my little mister bottle here, just add some water to the plate. It really doesn't matter how much water you use because it's a water-based product. It's going to take it just fine. So give it a little mix. It's going to be a really pretty, what I called when I was making the Shim star was a chestnut brown. Apply it. Yeah, I'm definitely probably going to wipe it back just because it is watery, and that's perfect though. Look how pretty. All right, so let me get the rest of this stain. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the back as well, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you what next step we're going to take. So vintage white. This is the same color we used on the wood Shim snowman. Start out with a dry brush, dry bristles. And we're going to see how heavy of a dry brush technique we want to do on this. So we're going to pull back a little bit of the paint here, kind of load up the brush a little bit. But we're going to also kind of offload it off here to the side. This first and kind of see how that looks. Kind of go back, pick up on those edges. I can always add more. When you're dry brushing, you can always go back over it, but it is very hard to get anything back that you don't want as heavy. So I'm just kind of testing right here to kind of see the type of finish that I think I want. And I really, really love the way that looks. So I'm going to try to mimic this finish on the rest of it. Let's see how it works out. We are just about wrapped up with this look. I like how it came out. It's very pretty. I'm going to do a little sanding along the edges now with our gator sander, just to help define some of the edges. And I know we just painted it, but this just kind of helps to bring out the shape right after we painted. It'd be very hard to get this look not doing it this way, but you could try. I'm gonna get this all sanded, and then we'll definitely put on those finishing touches. This may not look like the sanding step made such a huge difference, but it really helps it give more of an authentic, weathered, worn type of look when you dull that fresh paint look. And it just helps it blend beautifully and gives it some really nice distressing. So I definitely am glad I didn't skip that step. Now, we have got a really pretty center embellishment here. Little rusty snowflake, 3D. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of curved. And so I need to get that center to stick right here. And how I'm going to do that, I either sometimes use like jute string and I'll build it up. I've used that with some different things I've shown you before. But right here in the center, I'm going to kind of build up some cardboard that I'm going to fold. And I'm going to paint the cardboard to match the snowflake so that it kind of blends in. You'll see what I'm talking about. So let's just cut a little piece of cardboard and fold it up. All right, so the goal is to get the cardboard here in the middle, but we have to get it high, so we're gonna fold it up to create a little bit of a riser backer piece. Here's what I'm gonna do. I am gonna dry brush the top of this cardboard roll up with a little bit of that white, vintage white color. I'm gonna go ahead and do this in the center, like that. Make sure that all the little folded pieces stay folded. So I'll need to add some more glue inside there. And so this is just a fun little hack you could do if you have an embellishment that you need to add to something in it and it won't touch it. So now that touches the middle of the snowflake here. Put some hot glue. Got this greenery from Walmart. This greenery is actually the fall from Hobby Lobby. You saw me use it in the Shim Snowman earlier. Those finishing touches can be so important. So I always suggest kind of laying them out dry so that you know that you have something that you want. And I'll give you a finished look at this one. It is so beautiful. I hope you enjoyed seeing it come together. Oh my goodness, I love how the Shim snowflake turned out. It has such a rustic winter charm to it, and I can't wait to display it in my home. What I love most about both of these projects is that they're so budget friendly. And you think, you've got cheap supplies, how could you make something so pretty? And I love the challenge. I hope you enjoyed learning and that you're inspired to go try these yourself. If you haven't yet liked and subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to do that. Also, be sure to turn on that bell for notifications so you'll know when a new episode is waiting for you. And just a little reminder, if you haven't watched part 1, I show you how to make this really cute Shim tree and Shim star. So be sure to go check it out. You can look in the description for all kinds of information about today's video and any other project ideas I think you might like. Thanks so much for hanging out today. Don't forget, you're amazing, you're creative. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.